Jim is the Executive Business Development Director for King's Home. He, sometimes God takes us around the world for us to find out that our ministry is just across the street.
Amen.
And that's kind of what God has done with Jim. Jim and I were more like brothers and cousins growing up. And, you grow up and life happens and we separated. And literally for almost 30 years, we had some contact, but not much. But God has brought us back together. And you're going to, I don't know that enjoy is the right word, but what Jim's going to tell you about what he does and what God does through the ministry is going to touch your heart. He's very passionate. He loves what he does, and he's right in God's will. So y'all make Jim Medley welcome.
Wow, wow, wow. I normally get emotional while I speak, but I've listened to all the stories and just feeling the movement of God and the people that are here. It's just overwhelming to me. It really is. And I just thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And thanks again. This is just such a wonderful experience for me. And I'm coming back. I want to come back. I really do want to come back and visit with you guys again. And I'm going to put my phone up here, not to answer calls or do texts, but to make sure that I do not go over my 2-hour time limit.
All righty then.
Have any of you ever had a step back in time? Well, let me tell you, I had that starting yesterday afternoon late and this morning on my drive up here. As Richard said, I was born and raised in Medley, Alabama. I'm sorry I walk around. I may be in the back of this building before we finish. But,
Come on.
Born and raised in Medley, Alabama, but we also had a place on Thomas Mill Creek right next to the Armstrongs. Brett's family and my family were just inseparable. It was just like one big family. I had the opportunity to go and visit with my second mother last night, Thea Armstrong, Brett's mom, in Headland. And it was, and lo and behold, I'm sitting there talking with her, my phone rings, and I normally would never even look at it, but I did, and the name Brett Armstrong came up. Now you tell me if that wasn't heaven sent. So we got to talk with all of them, but anyway, I left this morning. I spent the night with my sister in Headland, and I was so passionate about bass fishing when I was young. Started at an early age, and then when I was 16, I was so wrapped up in it and loved it so much that on Sunday morning, I could leave my driveway, towing my boat, and it was not a Ranger. But anyway, I would, I love this boat, by the way, that's awesome. But I could get from my driveway to this boat ramp in 40 minutes. Well, I timed it this morning, same thing, not towing a boat, of course, and it was 40 minutes. Wow. When I crossed that, it's been a while since I've been back to Thomasville Creek. And when I crossed, I just had so many flashbacks of wonderful, wonderful memories. And again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, for being here. Graduated from college in 82. I did stay an extra quarter. Not on my daddy's wishes, but anyway, I graduated in 82, and I had the opportunity to be an Apple computer dealer back in the day. And I was out in Las Vegas, had been invited out for an introduction of one of their mini computers at the time. And I walk in, I got to this breakout session where Steve Wozniak was speaking. That's Steve Jobs' partner. I've always been told he was the brains of the two. So I walk in this large auditorium, and there's one guy sitting on the front row. And I didn't pay much attention to him. I went and sat right behind him, and I was looking down and reading a few things, and I look up, and it hits me, that's Steve Wozniak sitting in front of me. a hero of mine, in the computer day. So he kind of sees that I'm paying attention to him. He turns around and asks me my name, and I tell him, and I said, it's just an honor to meet you, rah, rah, rah. I said, what are you speaking on today? And there's a huge screen behind him, and I thought he was going to have all these slides and all this glorious presentation. And he reaches in his pocket, in his coat pocket, and he pulls out a piece of notebook paper. Still, he had ripped it out of the spiral. And he shows it to me. He said, this is my speech. No fancy today. Here's my speech. King's Home, I started 7 years ago with King's Home, and I am the Vice President of Development, which is glorified fundraiser. I'm going to tell you a quick story before I give you some facts about King's Home. When I took this job, I had known Lou Burdett, the president, for some 20 years, and we had kind of reconnected, just as Richard said he and I had. And I went down and visited with him. I was living in Athens, Alabama at the time. And he said, I'll meet you in town. I said, no, I want to come out to King's Home, and we'll meet there. So after 2 hours, I realized all we had talked about was King's Home, and how interested in just, I was just wrapped up with King's Home. And so we talked about another hour and left, and he said, hey, let's do this again. Well, in 2 weeks, he calls me, and he says, hey, love to meet again. And I said, great. He said, I'll meet you in town, we'll have lunch. I said, no, I want to come back to King's Home. Long story short, we talked 4 hours. It was all about King's Home. We're walking outside, going to my car, and he says, Jim, do you have an interest in being a part of King's Home? I said, how could you tell? And I said, I feel like I do. At the time I was not working, I had kind of had a semi-retirement. He said, well, let's be prayerful about it. And I said, oh, great. He said, let's really be prayerful about it and see what happens. A week and a half later, I am on my back porch, and I had just spent some really quiet time with the Lord praying. And King's Home was really on my heart. And my phone rings, and it is Lou Burdett. He says, Jim, have you been thinking about King's Home? I shared with him what had just happened. And he said, well, what do you think? I said, I really am being led. We had grandchildren in Birmingham, by the way, so we were really wanting to get that direction. He said, well, go inside and look at your email, and I've sent you an email. And it was an offer letter. And I sit there in my chair, my wife's on the couch beside me, and I read this, and I look at her, and I said, Lisa, we're moving to Birmingham. And she kind of looked at me. She really wanted to. She it was going to save us thousands of dollars on gas. She was going up and down that 65 to visit our daughter and grandchildren. So anyway, it was no question. The door had not been open. It had been kicked down for me to come to King's Home. And so I did. And the second day I was there, I was in my office, and I was getting my head wrapped around our donor list, our program list, our board of directors, finding out as much about King's Home as I possibly could. And I hear all this noise coming down the hallway. I needed a break. It was about 3:45 in the afternoon. My eyes were crossed. So I get up, and I stand in my door, and I look, and there 12 youth walking toward me. And they come and they're talking a little bit, and then they turn and go down another hallway to a meeting room. This was really my first experience of seeing and being with some of our residents. And when I took this job, I had two of my best friends call me and said, what in the world are you doing? do you really want to get up every day and go ask people for money? It's a great, fair question. I said, great question. Give me a few months and I'll let you know. Well, Lou's office is right beside mine, and I didn't know he was standing there witnessing me watching these youth, and I assumed he had heard them as well. Anyway, he asked me the question. He said, "Hey, Jim, what are you thinking?" And I said, "I'll tell you exactly what I'm thinking. I cannot wait to bring my family out here. I cannot wait to bring my children out here, even though they're grown." He said, "Hey, everybody goes through that. I know what you mean. It's wonderful." And I said, "Well, Lou, it may be a little different than what you're thinking." It's not. I'm not bringing them out here to say, "Hey guys, look what your mom and dad did for you. Look how great you had it. Look where you could have been." It was I said, "Lou, it's to educate them. This stuff is real. It is truly real." And he said, So I turn around, I go back to my office, and I sit at my desk, and my desk on is there. I had no clue how to do a conference call. I get my little book out, and I figure it out, and I call my two friends. And I say, "Hey guys, I got your answer." And one of them's a little more smart aleck than the other one. He said, "You're ready to leave, aren't you?" I said, "No, I'm not. I will gladly get up every morning and do this." And I said, "As a matter of fact, I'm starting with you two. Write me a check." And guys, they did. They said they did that. And to this day, I have, it is just, you're talking about God having you where He wants you. I have never had a job, and I've had several. I've owned some businesses and been involved with other businesses. And I can remember my dad when I was graduating, and it was about, I had 2 quarters left at Auburn. Alabama fans don't know me, so I grew up an Alabama fan. And he said, "Jim, what are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm gonna start looking for, start interviewing." And so, anyway, I said, I want a job that I really enjoy. That I get up and I like it. And he said, kind of chuckled. He said, "Well, son, that'd be great." He said, "I'm gonna give you a little advice." And I think he said if you can get up 3 or 4 days and you feel great about it, out of the 4 or 5 days, 6 days that you work, whatever it is, that's a great job. Well, guys, there's some days that it's there. Let me say this: there has never been a day that I thought I don't like my job since I've been at King's Home.
No, that's good.
Not one day.
That's good.
Now, there have been days that have been tough in the non-profit world, in development. It can be tough, but God always provides. He always provides. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit here and kind of what I want to say, but every December we have our final board meeting of the year. And I give the final report. And they're all big-eyed, and of course they've looked at some financials, but I start by saying, "Guys and gals, we made it another year." I said, "But guess what? January the 1st, it starts over." And it does. But let me tell you about King's Home. King's Home is a Christ-centered nonprofit for youth, women, and children fleeing domestic violence. And I did think I knew a little bit about abuse, not personally, but I just had read, seen and read and all that, like I was saying about my children, about abuse. But I quickly realized I had no idea about abuse. We'll get into that a little later. I promise I'll cut this off before the 2 hours. But we have 2 main campuses We have 4 other satellite campuses throughout central Alabama, but we serve the entire state. We have residents from, we have or have had residents from every county in the state of Alabama. And I love that. I love that we serve the entire state. We're not just an area in Birmingham and isolated. But we serve between 300 and 350 residents every year, and that's both in our youth program and our women's program, which are our 2 programs. Like I say, we have those 2 campuses. The main campus is in Chelsea, Alabama, right off of 280. And on that campus, we have our administration building, and we also have our youth girls houses there, as well as and across the street is our ladies program. And then about 10 miles from there in Wilsonville, Alabama, is our boys campus. And at any given time, we have between 70 and 80 boys and girls, and it's pretty much split 50-50 boy, girl, male, female. And then with our ladies, we normally will be serving anywhere from 25 to 30 ladies with their children. And the children can be of ages from birth. Some even come to us, been pregnant, and have their child while they're at King's Home. I'll talk first about our women's program. It is a 2-year program. And I've heard Lou Burdett, our president, speak so many times, and he always says, King's Home is not a hangout program, and it's not. Both for the women and the children. With our women's program, they come, they have 2 weeks to set up a program for themselves, and it's structured with our help. They're going to have a job. They're going to have a faith-based program also that they're going to participate in, because all of our homes are Christ-centered. And I can promise you this, as long as Lou Burdett, Jim Medley, and others are there, that's the way it's always going to be. We've been there for over 50 years, and it is not going to change in the next, ever how long we're here. But so it's a 2-year program, and then our youth program is from the ages of 10 to 18. And most of our youth come to us or placed through DHR. Today, in Alabama, there's close to 6,000 youth in foster care. 6,000. And I think maybe some of you have heard the radio ads, and I think they're wonderful, from Nick Saban and Bruce Pearl. They do a wonderful job talking about it and bringing awareness to it, because it's incredible. My sister, I have 2 sisters, both of them are older, and the one that's 2 years older, there's Richard's age. She called me one day and said, guess what we're doing? We are going to foster 2 twins that are 2 years old. My first response was, you're not going to foster, you'll adopt. And she laughed. Well, I saw them last night, and they're almost 16 years old, and their last name is Granberry now. So it's a wonderful thing. And then in our youth program, we like I said, we have about 70 youth, different campuses, and it too is not a hangout program. Once they get there, they're up at 5:30 every morning. They're doing Bible study. They're participating in the different programs that we have, which I'm about to tell you about. And then they go to school. And then they come home and they do chores. But our homes, the ladies program is, we have 3 different locations, but we have the main location, like I said, on the campus in Chelsea, which is a large home, and then we have a house downtown Birmingham, and then we have one kind of the west side of the state. But all of our homes are Christ-centered, and they do not hang out. They are up every morning doing their things, but we want the homes, be it the ladies' home or the youth home, not to be a house. We want it to be a home. Each of our youth homes, we have between 6 and 8 youth in each house. And it's the house parent model. And the house is divided. It has the parents in the quarters, if you will, and then kind of a dorm hall with the rooms, and it's 2 youth to each home. And people ask me all the time, Jim, what do you need? And there's 2 things that I need. I'm very upfront about it. It's money and it's your prayers. Because guys, you think about how most of us grew up. I know how I grew up. And I grew up in a loving home. But we still had issues. My parents still had to deal with some things. Like, can you imagine being a house parent with 6 to 8 youth? And the state, if you will, DHR, has 2, and I do not like this word, I just don't like it, but it's called classifications that they use. I don't like classifying, but it's basic and moderate. And God has us working with more of the moderate youth. And that is a youth that has a lot of concerns and issues, anxiety, you name it, they have it. If they cannot make it through our program, they're going to a lockdown facility. And it is the worst thing that you could imagine, having to witness a sheriff driving up and loading a youth into that car, and you know they're going to lockdown because they cannot make it through our program. It's unbelievable. But anyway, let me tell you how we get, Jeremiah 29:11. All of you know, I know I have, the plans for you to prosper, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. And that is the very first Bible verse that we share with all of our residents when they come to King's Home. That is the very first thing we share with them. And we continue to share that with them. And that's what we want to provide. That's our whole mission, is to provide a faith-based, Christ-centered hope and future. And I remember speaking to I started a junior board about 4 years ago, and meeting with them one Sunday when they finally got all their board members together. And I was going over some of the same things I'm going over today with you. And I ended by saying, if you can have an effect on one youth and make a difference in their life, then that is wonderful. Not all of them looked at me, they're younger. They looked at me like, this guy, what? But point being, you make a change in one life, and then that person makes a change in other lives, and it just kind of goes, it snowballs. So and they're fabulous. They just do a wonderful job, the junior board. I tell them all the time that, I've worked with other junior boards, and most of them want to be on that board so they can put it on their resume. With our junior board, it really works. They have events and really work hard to make King's Home a better place for all of our residents. We have a $10.2 million annual budget. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot, and that's my responsibility. And out of that budget, we have to, I say privately raise about 60% of that, around $6 million. And as I tell my board, we made it, but January the 1st, it starts over. But we've made it for 50 some odd years, and God is so good. I'm telling you, there are times that I sit there and I'm just like, my hands are in, my face are in my hands like, where's it coming from? How are we going to get there? And it is just absolutely amazing what happens. And prayer is incredible. Y'all talking about prayer this morning? You ain't got to convince me. It's It's the way we make it. He provides for us. And he provides, but we have to do the work. We have to do what we're supposed to do. We have to work hard, and we have to do the right things. But how do we raise that $10.2 million every year? Really, the $6 million of it, we do it through events. We have different events. Of course, we have a golf tournament like everyone else, but it's very successful. It's in Birmingham. Love for all of you guys to come and participate. One of our female board members 7 years ago started an event called Queen's Ball. Everyone's probably participated that has a daughter in the father-daughter dance. They used to melt my heart with my daughter. But this is a mother-son banquet, and it's a great fundraiser. They have a lot of fun. I call it, sometimes it's controlled, but most of the time it's just chaos. Those kids come in there and it's just, they're all dressed up, and it's a wonderful event. And, but we have different events, but we raise money through grants. We raise money through individuals. We raise money through churches. We have so many churches that support King's Home in just incredible ways. They come and work on our campuses. They send money annually. They send money monthly. They just believe in the cause because is good. What a cause it is. It is the most wonderful. Guys, I'm going to leave you with this. I'm not leaving you with it yet, but I got a few of it. Anyway, I wish there was not a King's Home. I truly wish there was not a need for a King's Home. Yeah. But I am afraid, as long as we're here, there is going to be that need. That's right. And when there's that need, we're going to work as hard as we can to make sure that those youth and those ladies and those children have a hope and a future. I mentioned our programs. This is a little bit of how we are different than other agencies or nonprofit agencies for that. Number one, we're Christ-centered, not that others aren't. But number two, we do have some programs, such as an equine program. I remember when I was going through it, reading about our equine program, I thought, this is wonderful. Our residents get to ride horses. Richard and I used to go to our aunts and ride horses every Saturday and Sunday growing up, until other things became of interest. And then I quickly realized it's a lot more than just riding horses. Then we have a garden program for all of our residents. And then we have a pottery program. Let me kind of touch on each one of those. Our equine program, yes, it's horses. Horses are very expensive. It's an expensive program, but it is so worth it because all of our programs, we have 2 directors in our equine program. And the youth come every day, different homes come each day for their lessons. And it's not about riding, not riding lessons, it's not learning how to ride a horse. It's about biblically based lessons. Same way with our garden program. They learn to plant, they learn to do the seed, and our director Jonathan just is amazing to me. I love to go and participate and just watch these programs unfold. And then our pottery program is for our women. And it's a jobs type program also. I mentioned that they have to have a job. And if they can't get a job outside of King's Home, then they can work in pottery. And it's not the spinning wheels, it's the rollout, but they do just amazing work. They're in about 1,700 stores, and you would think, oh my gosh, that's making a lot of money. I wish it could just get to break even. If we could get our programs to break even, it would be fabulous. But it's not. But it provides. They're just therapeutic programs that they provide hope and a future for our residents. I'm going to share 2 examples of how these programs work. I'm not sharing these with you to make you
sad, for any reason, but as I mentioned earlier, it's real. It's our residents come, and especially our youth, when they come to us, they meet with a counselor. We have counselors on staff, and the first meeting they have with us, they get all the information, they're talking, and then it gets to the abuse, because 98% of all of our residents come to us, not just from abuse, all of them come from abuse, but they come from horrific abuse. As I said, I thought I knew a little bit about it, I quickly realized I didn't. So, one day, in our equine program, I won't use real names, but it was a certain house of ours that their 8 youth were coming for their lesson, and this young boy, came to one of our co-directors and said, "Can I just walk with a horse today? I've had a really bad day. Can I just do that?" And she said, "Absolutely." She said, "As a matter of fact," or the co-director was going to do the lesson, she said, "I'm going to just walk alone." So they walk, and she just lets him walk with the horse. Well, he picks this horse that is it was donated to us. It was, I don't know any other way to describe it. It was the ugliest horse we had. It too had been abused. It had marks of abuse all over the horse, but it was just the ugliest horse we had. He picks it, and they walk, and she finally starts talking, and he opens up to her about the type of day he had, and she talks him through that, and so they're walking back, and they get to the barn, and she says, "John, why did you pick this horse? When all these others, why did you pick," I can't remember the name of it. "Why did you pick the horse?" I'm sorry. I tell this story all the time, and I never can make it through it. But he raises his shirt. And he too had scars all over from being beat, just like that horse. That young man graduated from high school 2 years ago, and he is now a Marine. I asked him, we have a graduation dinner, little event for all our seniors to graduate, and normally it's between 5 and 10 that are graduating each year from high school. And I was talking with, I'll call him John again, and I said, "John, I've never asked you this, because I'm not necessarily around them that much, but when I am, I like to talk with them." And I said, "John, I've never asked you this question, but how many foster homes have you been in?" 18 years old. His answer was 17. Wow. And guys, he had been at King's Home for 4 years. So again, it's real. It is real. Last story that I'll share with you is in our pottery program, our ladies program. And I absolutely love this program, because when I walk in there and see all the ladies that are in there, I know all of them have been through horrific abuse. And I know what they're getting from King's Home. It's not just about making pottery, it's the life lessons, it's the faith lessons that they learn while they're there. And I can be a little loud and happy and so forth when I go in there, and I like to do that. "Hey, how are you doing? Y'all are doing such a wonderful job. I hope y'all are having a wonderful day. Rah, rah, rah." Well, I did this, and about the third time I
I noticed this one lady would never look up. She kept her head down the entire time. And I noticed it the first time, second time, and third time. So I went to the director and I said, hey, I'm not asking for all the history, but I've noticed this one lady, and she immediately said, yes, she's scared to death of you. It just broke my heart. And she said, Jim, it's not that she thinks you're going to do anything, but it's just what she has gone through. Guys, she had gone through this when she was 4 to 6 years old. And what she had gone through, we just mentioned Easter. She had lived out in California at this age, and her parents, at the age of 4 years old, would sell her for sex to support their drug addiction.
Oh, wow. Wow.
This one's tough, guys. When she was 6 years old, that's the first time she said no. And her daddy said, oh, that's not an option. You will. And you'll do it. And if you don't, I will start pulling your teeth with pliers. She said no. And he pulled some teeth with pliers. A couple of months later, she said no again. And he said, that's, again, it's not an option. If you don't, I will drive nails in your hand. And he did. A couple of months after that, I was told, when I'm told, it's very confidential when I'm told stories like that. That's why I do not speak names or anything. A couple of months, it was around Easter week, and Lubert, our president, was doing the devotional, the Easter devotional. And I love this because it's all of our residents in our chapel on campus, on the main campus. So I'm standing in the back, and I love to stand in the back and watch them and see how they react. And lo and behold, Lou starts talking and says, can you only imagine, none of us in this room have ever had nails driven in our hands. She was in there. And I God intervened because God got for Lou looked straight at me, and I quickly, he catches on pretty quick, he's sharp. She changed the subject, but anyway, it ain't about these kids when they come in, like I said, when they meet with or ladies come in, they meet with their counselors and they start talking about abuse. They don't consider getting hit, slapped, kicked. That's not abuse to them. That's just every day. That's just the way it's always been in their life. Now, all of us in this room, I'm sure, I know I have needed help along the way. I think we'll all raise our hand on that one. It's no little boy, little girl, lady's dream to wake up one morning and say, I want to go live at King's home. But guys, I can promise you this, it is a lot better, and they realize what hope in a future looks like when they get there. I just greatly appreciate this opportunity. I'm going to tell you this group is wonderful. I've had chill bumps on my arms from the second I got here. Getting to see my old baseball buddy and good friend, Bob Woodall. My brother Brett. My brother Richard. And even someone that shot a spitball at me in the 8th grade. You want to raise your hand? Guess who the teacher was? My mother. You didn't mess with her son. So yes, it has been a step back in time, but it has been an incredible experience, and I cannot wait to get back to King's Home and tell them what I've gotten out of this today. I can promise you is just overwhelming, and I thank you so much. There are a lot of wonderful causes out there today. A lot of good ones. We collaborate with other nonprofits in our area, such as Well House, such as Love Lady. I'll tell one last quick story, and then I do want to open it up for some questions. But this couple, generous couple, had just donated a new barn for us. We just completed it. I invited our board of directors out to tour it, and I'm talking about the lessons that are taught, not only with the youth, but with the ladies as well. And I said, we collaborate with Well House. They bring their ladies, and Love Lady, they bring their ladies out here, all of ours. This lady, board member, raises her hand. Just now. She says, how much do we charge them? I said, not a dime. She said, well, this program is so expensive, and we lose money on it every year. Yes, ma'am. I said, but we don't charge anything. It is all Kingdom's work. Amen. That's the price, and that's the reward, and it will always be that way. Thank you, guys. I cannot even come close to adequately thanking you. Bob, thank you so much. I know what you got to do, and I know you're probably ready to bolt out of here. And it's so great to see you. So great to see all of you. And it's so great to have this opportunity. I could talk about King's Home all day long. I really can. I love it. I wish we didn't have to have it, but it is an incredible, incredible Christ-centered nonprofit for abused women, children, and youth.